This video, the middle-aged nerds discuss spoilers from books they read decades ago. Do you really need a spoiler alert? Do you really?
Hey, I'm Glenn the Geeky Hippie. That's my machine co-host.
Hi, and I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger, and welcome to Non-Terrestrial Half-Life. Today we'll be talking about Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut, and joining us again are our felty friends from the Way of the Leaf, Ryan and Brother Dan. Thank you for being
Hey
here.
guys.
Thank you for
We are
having us.
hand-powered machines.
Yes,
You are.
You're all machines.
Thanks for having us on again, guys. This is always fun.
This is a blast. Thanks for joining us. So, this week we discuss Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. One of his, well, it's very popular for some reason, but what'd you guys think? I didn't like it. I'll be honest. How'd you guys feel?
This was his most complex book that we've read out of the three,
Yeah.
I think. It was fun talking to Ryan as he was going through it, because Ryan was like, this book is garbage. I don't like it. I don't like it. But to me, this was what Vonnegut does. Vonnegut throws these non sequiturs together that seemingly have no correlation to things, that tie up in a really unique way that I think was kind of exemplified in this as well. I mean, there was some frivolous things in there to a certain degree, but man, the ending hit strong. There was a lot of for me at least, I think that he was tackling a lot with this. He addressed it as it was his 50th birthday gift to himself that he felt lousy about. He is a character in his own book. He is meta as all hell. He is talking about the writing process. He is talking about the characters themselves. It's a crazy book for a serious literature book. There is none other like it. There's no other books that have these weird doodles. There's no other book that has this kind of meander like a river that suddenly empties into this waterfall. I don't know. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's hard. It was hard to read, but
Yeah.
I liked it.
For me, honestly, what this feels like is somebody going through a midlife crisis or a mental breakdown for the first half of the book until he inserts himself and sort of course corrects as far as the story goes. Because before that, it is all over the place and it feels very angry and a little bit mean up until that point. There's not a lot of humor that I got used to with Vonnegut in the first two books. I mean, here and there, there's sprinkled a couple moments where you can giggle at. But I mean, it felt kind of mean.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Ryan, what'd you think?
So it was
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
I agree with everyone, and that's rare
Yeah.
for me, but it's so many things. It's all of that. But undeniably though, throughout it's well written. And the
Oh,
way
yeah.
he's going to describe something is still going to be a way that only Kurt Vonnegut can do. Correct? Like, so
Yeah.
I struggled with this book, like Dan said.
Yeah, me too.
And I have to put out the caveat that I did listen to this, and the narrator was freaking John Malkovich.
Yes, me too.
Yes, I listened to that one.
I hated it.
Really?
I hated it. And when we get into the more troublesome aspects of the book and the language part, John Malkovich performance of certain voices I thought was as problematic as the book itself, but I don't know why. So we'll get into that.
I can see
I'd
that.
have to look at the text in print to know on that, because when I listened to it twice. The first one was Malkovich, and then I listened to Stanley Tucci, and he did some of the voices, some of those lines the exact same way.
Interesting.
So it might have been just reading it as Vonnegut might have written it phonetically.
it had this feel of certain like foreign films from the 70s. I'm not going to be able to place any names, but a lot of 70s films have this kind of disjointed beginning and middle, but then the third will be like the emotional.
Yeah.
Fellini, like a Fellini film.
Yeah, it very much felt like that, and there was no whimsy. There's no
Yeah, I think that's what was
explaining.
missing.
We're not explaining anything through extraterrestrial intervention. Where there's which is fine, and that part's fine. I do agree that the beginning half felt like he was more interested in giving witty witticisms about the American condition than he was creating a story. And I felt like his desire to put out those observations were tantamount to or oppressing the actual narrative and character development. He starts off with the problematic let me just tell you the ending in the very beginning, which is always kind of like bothers me.
He does that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's a Vonnegut-ism for sure.
But then he just proceeds to not pull any punches, and I had to find myself just kind of appreciating the beauty of the language and the feats that he can do in describing something or pairing two things you never think are pairable. But then the action starts happening. I guess this is the third act, like in those movies, and he starts violently attacking everyone, which is just a joy to read.
Fighting fingertips off,
from the way of the leaf.
Yeah, and then I can't. How do we put it? The ending is gut wrenching, and the most human, like thing I've ever. It still like shakes me up. Like my brother and I, we lost our father, and it's to have that moment it just was. I appreciated it. I appreciated experiencing it. I appreciate Vonnegut for writing it. I appreciate his honesty in expressing like his current life position. He's 50 years old, and he says
I can feel that.
Yeah, and he's going into the a more troubling part of his life, like, and he needs to figure out how to do this. And I loved that honesty. And I'm turning 50 in 2 years, and it's I'm going to return to this book. I guarantee you that I'm going to have to read this again with the ending in mind the entire time, and try and get a better grip on it. But
I would also suggest read the book. The actual
you are a book purist.
The doodles themselves. Well, no, I get more out of a book than I do from an audiobook, granted, but this is an interactive multimedia experience in reading this book.
Yeah.
I discovered later that
put it on my phone, so that I could look.
I'm sorry. Yeah, they actually included Brother Dan. They included the drawings in there. I just realized towards the end of the reading. So yeah, like I was
okay.
Yeah, I didn't see that very beginning, but
because we were talking about earlier, and you said that Malkovich was just describing the 12-sided asterisk as an anus. I was like, "This, you're losing some of the thing here." I think
as only he can do.
Yeah.
I'm like, luckily we got a PDF that allows us to look at the illustrations.
That drawing of the anus is what tells me that I did read this when I was younger, because for a while there I was like, this is not, I wasn't sure, even through the whole book I was like, did I really read this? But I vividly remember the anus drawing from when I was a teenager reading this. So I had to have read, at least started it when I was a teen. Those ones that my memory of what happens in it was like negligible at all, after all these years. And I never really found any enjoyment in this book. Either narrator I listened to and reading it along while I'm listening. It just never grabbed me. I actually think I might have blocked my memory of this book, and that because I didn't like it as a teenager. And that might be why I couldn't remember most of it.
For
I don't
me,
know. It just
the ending where, he's sort of dealing with himself and his character and also dealing with his father in that way, that moment really shines so much because the rest of the book doesn't. And I'm like, this is the Kurt Vonnegut I want from start to finish.
the end is the best part of the book.
I really want that Vonnegut from start to finish, and I don't feel like we got him till, like I said, a certain point in the story where he inserts himself and he course corrects, and he completely tells you he's doing it. He's like, well, let's see, I screwed up that. There's no way he could get from New York to there that fast, but we're not going to worry about that. And it's
Right.
almost like somebody coming into their right mind finally and course correcting for you.
Yeah,
For me, what I did like to an extent at the end, I really dug the whole meta stuff. I like when authors get meta, break the fourth wall, and stuff like that.
I think on reflection, this book, and Ryan, I agree with you that this book does need to be revisited with the ending kind of in mind. But it's clear that he tells us over and over again that this is kind of a reflection or a journal of his own thing. He tells us right off the bat, this book is a gift for myself, and I feel lousy about it. I don't like it. It's not a great book. But here's what it is. You see how playful he is with the drawings in there. But his mother committed suicide that he revisits periodically within this. His father, it like these certain things. It is a journalistic loose autobiography, I think, to a certain degree, which is really sad, which shows just what I don't know, just sadness to a certain degree with his parents.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Speaking of meta, I'm gonna butcher the actual quote, but he mentions that some culture, when their art is them searching for their fathers, and he said, if in America, American art should only be about searching for mothers, because mothers have more use anyways. Something
that was the hero story, someone looking for a father figure.
Yeah, and yes, and then he said that some writer was given the direction by an editor / friend to, if you keep in mind as you're writing that you're searching for your father, right? And he said, yeah, and that's when he said, yeah, we should be looking for moms because moms are more useful.
Then Ryan, right after that, he said, and then motherless Dwayne Hoover and motherless Wayne Hubler were in the parking lot. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then the very end, who does he see? He sees his father's face. Right. And that's when it all like culminated. And it might not be as loosely constructed as we are feeling it to be right now. That first half,
it is not
it does pop, things recur, things are referenced, things come around and become meaningful later in ways that were surprising.
The farm that was once where the Sacred Heart or the Sacred Miracle Cavern now lays.
Those quote unquote coincidences are always kind of whatever, can be frustrating for me, but
I love them.
It feels like this story has a Taverin in the middle of it.
Taverin?
Things just
things do link together, like the prison milk truck that turns over and stops traffic.
They
go into the fact that most people are drinking the milk and don't even know it's prisoners making them.
And again, I'm not like a super literate guy, but I did study a little bit of postmodernism, and this is like, again, this postmodern catastrophe that happens with little emotion shown. Things happen
Right.
and you barely react. He sees a dead body. He's like all this stuff, the stuff that's on his feet, he doesn't try to take off. Like all these things, like it's almost like a Philip Roth book, or kind of like a where like in this journey, how long did it take for him to even get there? And it said, yeah, it probably should have been longer, but even then there was a traffic accident and he had to walk the rest of the way. This whole thing is like part of this hero's journey that was really big, like in the 60s and 70s. That and it tends to disintegrate into a major catastrophe. And we saw that with Cat's Cradle, with the whole world turning to Ice Nine. Here it was a violent act that we barely see any of. We hear,
we get description.
Yeah.
From the local newspaper with X's on a map. Yes, so great. Such a great way of doing that.
For me, the big difference is with a hero's journey, you have a champion moment or you have a redemption moment for a character. And the redemption moment doesn't come until Vonnegut redeems himself by releasing Kilgore Trout. And for me, that's what it's all about. And, that's why I think the first half felt meandering to me, is that, this is what we were working up to, is this moment, which feels disconnected until he inserts himself in the later half. So that first half just felt off, wonky, and
who's the protagonist? Who's the protagonist in this book?
There isn't one, honestly. Vonnegut himself.
I would say it's Dwayne Hoover.
I see.
It's his story.
He's kind of.
But he's the antagonist, not the protagonist.
Yeah, exactly. He's the antagonist to me.
Yeah.
Is he?
That's how. To me, he's the antagonist.
He's just a sad person going mad.
I would say that Kilgore Trout is the antagonist.
He's the one who drives him mad.
He's the one that caused him to go over the edge. He was the the catalyst.
No, circumstance drove him
in the bathroom.
No, whoever controlled that spotlight, that's who absolutely drove him over the edge. That spotlight that hit fucking Kilgore's jacket, that is not Kilgore's fault. You take that back.
Okay. All right.
That's funny. No, he was clearly showing. I mean, he was showing what echolalia early on. Like there were hints that he was losing it when he just started like repeating people's words and.
Right, the street turned to a trampoline.
Yeah, that was weird, and I'm like, that was very descriptive. I enjoyed that part.
But again, it didn't affect him emotionally. We get that he endured it. He tried to seem like it was no big deal because he didn't want to seem embarrassed, and then went into his office and then went by himself, and then eventually asked his secretary or his mistress. He's like, "Hey, can we just go to the motel?
I need to do this.
I need some help here. Maybe this will help."
I could have done without the exact length of everybody's penis throughout the book. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't need to know that.
That was unnecessary.
I don't need to know that.
I loved every one of it.
Yeah. I thought it was fun.
I mean, I didn't need the women's measurements either. I'm like, wait, what are we doing?
He's throwing it out there where he can objectify the men.
Well, he objectifies both, yeah.
Yeah. But making men he basically boiled each of those men down to the size of their dick.
No, he doesn't.
And how many orgasms?
If we're talking about machines, if we're talking about these just meat processing things, then it's just another stat. It's it's like weight,
Yeah.
it's like hair color, it's cock size.
Yeah, but he's not doing that from the crazy guy's perspective, which is what's worrying.
Right,
Well-
right. And I mean, I think it says in here early that Vonnegut says that he puts himself to where he thinks that everyone is kind of a machine in itself.
Didn't he say that he himself has a 3 inches and 2 inches in
And
diameter?
5 inches,
Three-
which
5
is
inches
the world
diameter.
record,
5 inches
Three-
diameter.
So he's
Yeah.
got a tree stump.
which is ridiculous. No, it's
Yeah.
a tuna can.
Yeah, pretty much.
The giving tree.
Can't even call it a soup can. That would be too big, but tuna can.
Right.
That fits. That fits. I'm a
So
little worried.
See, I would contest, Bill, that Kilgore is crazy too.
Okay, so-
which
yeah.
crazy man were you referring to? I'm assuming
I
Dwayne,
think
but
I think Kilgore Trout is the sanest person in the book.
I don't know, man. He's a little crazy.
He's
Especially
fine
talking
until
to his
other people
bird.
inject themselves into his life.
Kilgore has an interesting, so he has this masochistic ambition. He is going to demonstrate what failure looks like in the arts. He's there to be his authentic, shitty self and mock and accept their mockery as well. He walks into the Holiday Inn, and
Yeah,
the guy
looking
behind
like a
the
bum.
counter is like, "Of course it's you. We need you. You are our savior, our art savior. This is a dead town. We need this sort of eclecticism." And Kilgore's like, "Fuck, I don't know if I want to
Yeah,
do
he doesn't
this.
like it. He does
I
not
don't like
it.
this responsibility. I just like being eccentric on my own with my parrot, who I talk to."
I mean, honestly, I think Kilgore's probably the most well-adjusted before he gets thrust into the situation.
But
All right,
that's
so-
not a high
so-
bar.
The quote is so Kilgore decides to go to the festival to show that he's devoted his entire life to quote unquote the search for truth and beauty and didn't find doodly squat. That I think is different than just being an artist. Like he's like, I've searched for truth and beauty, have not found nothing. I'm a failure at that pursuit, not a failure in life, a failure at that pursuit of wholesome truth and beauty.
Well, so he explains it with, so he tries to set his parrot free. Remember, he opens a cage, he opens the window, and then the parrot gets scared and goes back to the cage, and he says, "Good choice. It's good to always have this cause to just, so you make your cause to try to get back out of this cage," or something along those lines, right? Hold on, it's quote, "You made sure you still have something worth wishing for to get out of the cage."
Nice.
And then when this acceptance letter came, and he was like, he didn't want to get out of the cage. You know, he's like, I don't want acceptance because I'm already adverse to it, and so I
Right.
don't want to actually get it. And so that's why he poo-poos the whole thing and says, "All right, you want this? You want this sloven? You want this decrepit shit? You want art? Yeah, fine, I'll bring it, and I'll go to a all-night porn shot beforehand and stink. I won't brush my teeth. Like, I'll just be as scummy as you can be." And people are like, "Hey, no big deal. It's cool." As soon as he gets there, he kind of disappears into the crowd. Like, once he gets past his guy, until Dwayne shows up. But I mean, for the most part, everyone else just dismisses this ridiculous guy, this dirty ass dude in a tuxedo in the lobby.
With plastic pearl on his feet.
Yes.
Well, I love the fact that he gets all of New York City terrified of the Pluto gang. I mean, that just shows, the type of word of mouth BS that social media has sort of become. So I can really identify with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, does anybody remember their first time reading this?
I do.
I do a bit too.
I know who I was reading it. How about that?
Wait.
And I know that
Yeah.
I did not respond the same way as I did now. I think that I was I was an angry, bitter person, and I think everything, all the observational quips about anything in this life, how the government, race relations, all of it, I just basically agreed with, and I consumed it like, yeah, yeah. And I didn't,
Right.
but now I'm much older. The beginning part, which I probably just thought was just like poetic, just go rant, yeah, just go, like it's almost like beat poetry, just one thing after the other.
Yeah.
Now like that was difficult, and then the ending, which I don't think I mattered, I thought it was just clever, probably. Now I'm filling in blanks, but I probably just thought it was clever that he like wrote himself out and forgave his character. I don't remember being emotional this time. It was oh whoa.
Yeah,
It was way more emotional for me.
I think it was for
For
me.
me, I personally do remember my reaction to this book was, so I had mentioned before in shows that I gobbled up Vonnegut books kind of one after the other, and I got them from the library. They're very easy reads. I would finish one and pick up the next one, more or less right then, and return 5 in a week or so. And it was just easy, fun. He changed my idea of how to write, to be honest. This book, I remember just being super enamored with the fact that Kilgore Trout was finally a main character instead of a subsequent
Yeah.
character.
Right.
He's like the magical guy who kind of shows up, and there wasn't much magic going on with this here, but I remember being really enamored. I love the side stories that he remembers, his little stories that he wrote, or a book that he wrote, the little synopses. These things tickle me to no end. Vonnegut, the fact that he is like that Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where Charlie's looking at all the red strings connecting all these different things. I imagine Vonnegut has a board that he's like, all right, so I did mention this, so I gotta try and tie this back to here somehow. And he does so really well. I like these clever ways. And so this book, I remember, and the drawings actually knocked my socks off the first time I saw him. I was tickled with every drawing he did. I'd never read a book like this before, and I still haven't. It's baffling. It's hard to embrace still. It's like,
Yeah, it is.
it's a hard one to kind of like understand what I read with something that seems so freaking simple. It seems
Yeah.
so simple. It seems so Legos, and suddenly little Lego blocks, and you have a Death Star, and you're like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Vonnegut's writing a lot, is I'm baffled by how he does something so simple, makes something so freaking complex and hard to wrap my head around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I
I have no problem with his writing. I think he is brilliant. Even in this book, his writing is good. It's my issues. I just don't like this story, and I don't
Yeah.
like the characters. I was happy that Kilgore Trout's in there because I've known I knew who Kilgore Trout was before I even read Vonnegut, because we had a book that was written by Philip Jose Farmer under the name Kilgore Trout, called Venus on a Half Shell, and that was on the bookshelf with all the Kurt Vonnegut stuff. So I knew who Kilgore Trout was there for me before I even read the books.
Such a great name, by the way.
that is
Yeah,
a
it
great
is.
name.
Such a
Yeah, it
great
is.
name.
And I just didn't care for this story. I got, I saw what he was trying to do, but I just wish he had done it in a different way, than the way that I could have enjoyed more. I put my enjoyment of this book, for those who watched our review Bill and I did of Dragons of Summer Flame, I put it on par with how I felt about that book, and I was not kind to that book at all. So but it
was
just
the casual racism an issue that you marked down as far as your
Yes,
enjoyment of this book?
very
it,
much.
it, it was it was my last straw with this book, I think. You know, just like, you know,
Interesting.
Dwayne, who had his last straw before he lost it. The racism, the use of the N word, an unfortunate way to describe Chinese people was in there. Even the use of the word transvestite I found to be bothersome. You know, they're cross dressers. You know, is the term that they appreciate. So, you know, when a group has a term they want us to use, that's what I tend to try to use.
Sure.
You know,
I think in the
hearing
early
that-
70s, transvestite was an appropriate term. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And
at-
to be
at the time.
honest,
Yeah.
LeSabre was one of the more sympathetic characters you could find.
Yeah.
He did not paint this person as, he painted him as being fearful for his lifestyle, but he painted him as being sensible, loyal, loving with his wife, having more orgasms by far than anyone than his
And
wife.
he ends up in Maui.
And he ends up in Maui.
Yes.
Some of the derogatory terms did take away from some of my enjoyment. Just hearing it repeated, and as Ryan has said, Malkovich does this particular voice. I don't
Early
know how
on
to
in the book, yeah.
With
don't know how to
relish. He
describe
says
it.
it with
Like-
relish.
It's
Southern-
almost Malkovich has that way of doing it where it feels icky, and that's a part of what took away from my enjoyment from some of this.
I will
So-
say that as I was reading and as I was being affected by the use of the N-word, I noticed that it was more or less attached to characters.
There's no glorification of it.
There was no
ever.
glorification.
No,
well
ever.
said,
No.
Ryan. Thanks
Right.
for bailing
He
me
is,
out.
Yeah.
he's making commentary, and it is jarring, and
But-
it should and it's brave of him to go there,
Mhm.
especially as a white author. But,
But
he
he does use it himself. He does use it himself when he's talking about his
That is
mother
the
and his
narrative
sister
voice.
and how they don't do the N word.
Right. And that was,
So-
again,
so-
those characters, though.
No, as
No,
himself.
that was the narrator.
Yes, but that was
him.
what
as Kurt
they thought,
Vonnegut.
which was probably truth for him then as well, which
Yeah.
was a statement. I
Right.
mean,
Doesn't make it okay though.
no, but it's saying that this is
He-
what his mom thought and this is what his sister thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is, yeah. So it. I
So-
hear what
so-
you're saying.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not okay. This was 1972 or something, 73,
72,
71.
73. It came out the year I was born. So
And so this is what our parents were born into, and this is what we've had to kind of combat against. What we've done in two
Yeah.
generations is fantastic.
Yeah.
Frankly.
and I don't believe
for
I'm-
us to be having this conversation and be like, oh, we shouldn't refer to this term for Asians that is used a few times. That
Correct.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago that people go, really? That you have an issue with that?
and
So
I've
we're
tried
making
to
tremendous
convince-
progress. And this
Yeah.
book, I think, is an example of the progress that we're making. And I think that Vonnegut was well aware of what he was doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
do
don't believe
agree
I don't
with
believe
that.
Vonnegut has a racist bone in his
I
body.
agree.
I don't think he does.
I don't think he was racist himself.
No.
I watched a couple of videos, and there was one particular video Glenn shared with me, and it was entitled "Is Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Racist?"
Yeah, I watched
And
that too.
It was an African American woman because I wanted to see her opinion. I'm like, this word bothers me. I have no idea if it bothers her, so let's find out. And the answer is, yeah, it bothers me, but at the same time, the way he was raised and everything, within context, you can understand why it's used. So she
Mhm.
doesn't think he's
Mhm.
racist. And I can agree with that. I still don't like that word. And I don't,
See-
in a conversation between me and I don't care who it is, if somebody casually drops that word, I'm going to walk away because I don't like that word myself. I'm not
Right.
offended on her behalf. I'm offended
Yeah.
on my behalf.
Right.
That's
I-
exactly
let me
yeah.
say two
So,
things real
yeah.
fast. One is that if I were to write about my work in construction, I would obviously have to write about the casual racism that I hear tossed around through certain characters I would create. This is a fact of what exists, and I could not sugarcoat my experience by having to swallow some of my bile and some of the things that people would just throw out as if it was just like a funny thing to say.
Right.
I will also say that in the annals of great literature, we have William Faulkner is probably a good example, but we have Baldwin, we have even Hemingway, but where there are questionable terms that are
Oh yeah,
used that
Mark Twain.
See,
we don't use it in
yeah,
Twain.
and
So I do allow some leeway with the arts.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily think that the art represents the artist's true views. I think we are
Correct.
creating characters, and I think at some point you have to create vile characters, and this is a vile trait, and
Yeah.
he intentionally used.
Like you can almost like depersonalize the Dwayne and call Dwayne like the bourgeoisie, American enterprise, and
Okay.
and Kilgore is like the proletariat trying to like admonish the power, the elite, right? And he's in contextualizing it when he was writing it, the 60s and 70s, like race relations were being addressed actively, and people were dying for it. And he talked
Right.
about like white college students taking bullets for it, or like remember that? Yeah, like he mentions that he's forever throughout this book making commentary on race relations in America, and at that time, and arguably prescient now, it's relevant. So like American History X is like one of my favorite movies. You can't make American History X without having people embody horrific traits, and if it's
Oh
going to
yeah,
be relevant or
See,
realistic feeling, they're
I'm
going to
I'm
be. Yeah,
I'm not saying we should pull the book off the shelves or anything like that. Absolutely. This is an expression and an expression of a time. Here's the thing. Stephen King uses that word and he's been
yeah,
accused of being racist, but he'll have characters that
yeah.
are that way. And I
Mhm.
still feel the same way when I come across that word from Stephen King. I
So
mean,
here's a good
yeah,
question, or I don't know if it's a good question, but I want to ask it. Do you think that they should still teach this book in, say, high school or junior college or college level? Is it
college.
problematic?
college,
Too
absolutely.
problematic?
The sex content alone, I think, should be college.
Well, there's hardly sex content.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah, I
one.
know. It's more anatomical than sex.
Yeah, it
But
just
even
describes
that,
penis on it. Yeah, I would say that this book probably isn't as relevant in a high school setting now.
right? It
I would say
it's
college,
safer
yeah.
for college. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's safer for college because you will get parents who will complain about the penis sizes. You will get parents who complain about comparing the
Maybe
number of
they should have picked a better
orgasms.
partner.
Right, but the parents.
Sorry.
I don't know where this one sits on the list of books, books that are banned or that have questions have risen about should they be banned or not. But
I
I
don't
know
think any
Vonnegut's
book
got
should
a
be
few on
banned.
that.
So
No, they should.
What do
Legally
you
ban
think? What do
books.
you think of the terms aside? What do you
right.
think of minority representation in this book?
If I'm going just on story, I think it reflects a time in America where it was extremely hard for anybody of African American descent to rise above, I'd say, menial labor, particularly in a large city that is orientated more towards white people. So I think it's an honest reflection of what was going on at the time. I'm
Yeah.
glad to see it's not like that anymore. It's
I don't or Wayne Hubler kind of seemed like, I don't know. He almost seemed like the fool character. He's not smart. He's also not smart.
well,
And
he grew up in
he's
prison
just
and reform school, and that's a reflection on that system. So he's not
but
supposed to be. So I
What
get
you
that.
what you
still
see
think
is
it
is with Wayne Hubler is someone trying to interpret the world around him,
Right.
and on
Yeah.
a very literal level, where he's seeing cars go by with or trucks and trying to read what they're saying. He sees an airport for the first time, and it's that fairyland that he's dreamed about. He's just trying to make sense of a world that is completely outside of his realm of understanding.
I might be having my opinion colored by the way it was played in the movie that I watched the other day. I want to say it was Omar Epps played him.
It
And
was.
just whoever it was that played, the way he played it, just that might be covered. It was a little over the top, but everything was a
Well,
little over
I
the
mean,
top in that
I think the
movie.
character is a reflection on our criminal justice system, because it goes into detail about
Yep.
why he is the way he is,
Yep.
why he's uneducated, why he
Mhm.
can't read. And I
Mhm.
think that was his point, was he's sort of the innocent child interpretation of everything that's going on around him, because he literally doesn't have the wherewithal to be vicious, mean, or cruel.
Yeah, I think he is a very sympathetic character,
I agree.
and I
Probably one
think
of my
that
favorite characters.
I'm not saying he wasn't.
it's realist that it's sympathetic in the fact that he can't read. It's sympathetic that he is trying his best to be on Dwayne's good side to get a basic job, because he hears that it's a good job to get. He hears it's a good company. He wants to work
He
there.
trusts Wayne Hooper.
He had his
And
picture
their
in his
names are
wallet.
close.
Yep,
Yeah.
Their names are
because the box
close.
on the wall told him that he's a good guy.
And then he thought they were playing a game where you would try to throw baseballs at a black man's head.
Yeah, I never heard of that, and I'm like, what the
I
hell?
never heard of that.
Dodge
I'm glad I'd
African or
never heard of
something.
that.
African Dodge.
I,
Yeah, I don't
I don't know
know.
that.
That,
I
that's
was
not a game I've
weird.
ever heard of.
I was
So
happy he was agile.
our
and
history
didn't
is
get hurt.
so racist, guys. So
Oh, I know.
we've
Yeah,
overcome
it is.
so much shit.
And
Oh,
that's why I
Well,
get
that's
so upset
arguable,
when people
too. I
complain
mean,
it's
well,
tough as
I
military.
have. I'm not throwing baseballs at a black man's head
No.
for nothing. Unless I'm told by my coach to bean the next batter.
Well, yeah, but then you're thrown at the helmet. We have helmets now. It's okay.
No, I made it
Right.
for his nose. There's no protection there.
Question left, Bill, that you want to ask?
No, I think we covered it. Like I said, we all know some of the language hasn't aged well, but at the same time, it is a reflection of the time it was in.
so I'll tell you what one of the differences in my reading, and
Yeah.
this is instructive of the times. Like when I first read this, I don't think I was phased at all by the language. I completely believe that he is just portraying the horrifying beliefs of the time, and he's making commentary throughout, and it never bothered me. Now reading it now, oh boy, like
Thanks, John
The
Malkovich.
twist.
or
Well,
yeah,
it's not just Malkovich. I mean, anybody saying those words, it gets my teeth on edge, and I'm like, I don't like it. I feel dirty.
See,
mhm.
I had considered amongst all the stuff that I wanted to reread was Mark Twain. I mean, Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer in particular. But I don't think I can sit through it.
I think we have evolved, right, to a certain degree, way past what this book. We are not like, at least the four people on screen here are not Dwayne Hooper's parents or any of this, who like were these horrible racist by societal nature. Yeah,
I hear you.
I can
Yeah.
agree with that. And like I said, there are other aspects of the story that are just spot on. His talk about, Columbus discovering America, only there was already 1 million people here, and
Mhm.
proceeding to
Right.
kill them, and things like that, that,
I did
are
like
valid
how
points.
he called America a bunch of sea pirates who made up laws.
Right.
Yeah.
See,
Straight
that
up.
was like,
Pretty much.
yeah.
we also this is a really ecological book. But we talked about West Virginia. They talked about I mean, there's a lot of aspects that were really prescient now,
Yeah.
as they were 50 years ago, you know.
Yeah, even more so. I mean, with some of the environmental stuff that he
Mhm.
touches on, it's like, whoa.
I mean, they were talking about coal being done 50. I mean, he's like, yeah, we burnt it all up. It went to heat. It went away.
That was my age years ago when he was talking that too. That's funny. And it's still being used.
So, Glenn, let me ask you. We've read 3 Vonnegut books. It was Cat's Cradle, Slaughterhouse 5, Breakfast of Champions. Go ahead and rank them 1, 2, 3.
I don't need
Uh, Slaughterhouse 5, Cat's Cradle, Breakfast of
Yeah.
Champions at 6.
I'm not getting dizzy.
Wow, you hated this book.
I really didn't like this book. And you know what? Like I said, the N word and the language was not the big problem. It was just the last straw. You
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah.
rest
Well,
had me just.
It took away
And
from my
that
enjoyment.
happens.
I'm not gonna lie. It did.
Yeah.
Where would you rank
it-
the 3 books we read, Bill?
Oh, geez, this one is last. This is my least enjoyed. 100%. There is one part, the father part, which really resonated and touched me. I think it's because I've lost my father, and once you get, over your grieving, and you're never going to stop missing your dad. So anything like that hits me like a ton of bricks every time.
Where would you
I
rank
would
everything?
say I would put see, I like this book, guys. I think I
No,
like
it-
this
Fine.
book.
You're allowed to. I mean, we're not going to
Yeah.
yell at you for liking it.
I
Yeah.
mean, and this is a guy who was a bastion of modern like literature. This is literature he was writing. He was
Yeah.
subverting a lot of things in this book when we come to literature and how to tell a story. I would say that this might be my favorite one of the 3.
That's cool.
I will say Cat's Cradle's super good, but
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse 5 is even more good. So this is 1. I'll say Slaughterhouse 2 is 2, and Slaughterhouse 5 is 2, and Cat's Cradle is 3 for me. Ryan.
Well, I would agree with your list. And I was just thinking while you're talking that this book is probably, of the 3, the one book that I wish I read when it first came out, and I wish I was an adult and the time, and I could appreciate like it in context. Because again, we're talking early. He was writing in the late 60s, early.
There
70s.
was Vietnam War era
Yeah.
stuff.
Just
that
so
was
much-
certainly thrown
just
in. Yeah.
just so much going on, like something happening here. So I wished, so for me it, I might have enjoyed it even more than all the other books if I read it then. Right now I think the Cat's Cradle and Slaughterhouse 5 have a timelessness that I appreciated. So yeah, so I would say, yeah, Slaughterhouse 5, Cat's Cradle, and then this book for me.
For me, I'd have to go Slaughterhouse 5, Cat's Cradle, and then this book, but mostly because the spirit of this book for a lot of it just felt very different, angry, and almost mean. Like I said, some of the humor that's in the other books, I didn't get through the first half of this book. It's not a very jokey book. It's
No,
got
I
some
mean, it
teeth
starts off
and it bites.
It's pretty dark.
It starts off saying this man is going insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And-
I just
yeah,
maybe I
right
wasn't
off the
ready
bat.
for that, and that's why it's the
Yeah.
lowest on my list. But I mean, will I read it again? Yeah, I think I will, because there's probably aspects, but I would like to get a physical copy and read it and see if it's different.
That might be.
Yeah, I like this book. I think it's there's a frivolity there that is there within these dark themes.
The frivolity is in his playfulness with structure and
The meta
and
aspects.
events, like in time. Like I could see that, but on
The,
no
the
level,
drawings aren't the drawings of an angry man.
they're simple, right? They're like
Not
simple
really.
drawings.
They're
Mostly
pretty
simple.
freaking good.
But the messages
Some of them
beneath those are pretty angry. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm
Mhm.
just saying, but the messages
Yeah.
beneath the drawings are pretty angry.
Right.
I-
And what he chose to draw is again its own little study.
Here's my question. Who was he doing this for? Because all of them are okay, so this was, and he uses was a lot. Like an
Okay.
apple was a fruit that and he goes on to explain, and it's like, who's he writing it for?
Oh yeah, no,
That's-
society is completely
Yeah.
dissolved. Yeah, I mean, this is post-apocalyptic stuff to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Everything is gone. Animals are gone. He has to describe what a beaver is or
I think
was.
he's describing it and telling it to aliens. I think that's where the closest this book comes being science fiction. I think he's writing to the aliens visiting Earth,
Or he's
telling them about
writing to the
the
survivors
stuff
of
on
Ice
Earth.
9. So
That too.
Wow. And you know what? I would not put that past him.
I wouldn't either.
He has his own little Cosmere of sorts.
Oh yeah,
The Vonnegut
picked up on
verse.
that.
Yeah, Vonnegut
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm glad
yeah.
you brought that up. That was one thing that kept consistently tripping me up was that use of past tense. And trying to understand like how that fit into the entire overall narrative arc. And I still don't understand it. But that's fine.
Yeah, I don't either, but I like to play with it in my mind a little bit and go,
Mhm.
well, maybe it's for the few who survived Ice 9. Maybe we had astronauts in space at the time, and now the human race will continue type thing.
Or maybe Vonnegut was really sure that society was going to devolve in the next 20 years. Then is Kilgore Trout just Vonnegut's id? Stories that he can no longer sell to science fiction magazines and stuff.
I think it's a mixture of a more a lighter Vonnegut with a mix of his own father is kind of what it feels like. His lighter side, his more jovial, give you a wink while the world is burning side. Let's go with that. Even though he has plenty of that, I think this is him set free, because Kilgore Trout books, if you're a character, forget it.
Yeah.
So fascinatingly enough, Kilgore Trout returns in his novels after this, though. He did not free him.
Oops.
It was a metaphor and a metaphor and a metaphor. He had no intention. Yeah. So Kilgore Trout comes back, and
Well, I wonder if he addresses that in the story. I would not be surprised if he does.
as we're talking about it, and I'm looking things up simultaneously. Yeah. As terms of like, and that's just, I guess it's just so Vonnegut. Yeah, set him free, have this great moment. It's meaningless. He's coming back.
What?
Right? Like,
The
Why do
illusion
you
of
think?
freedom.
Why do you, Ryan, and you as well? Why do you think he chose "Breakfast as Champions" as the title of this book?
oh, because well, that's what that one woman would say every time she'd offer a drink. And she what does she represent? She represents like the innocence, the
I think
victim.
she represents the working class who have
Yeah.
to smile and take the BS just to get along and get the
and
best.
hopes to get just a set of tires.
Yep, that's all she wants. Radial tires.
This title was in my head apparently important enough that they added 2 disclaimers that this was a trademark of General Mills.
Yeah.
And this is not a reflection of them, and they have very fine products.
Right.
Okay, so I was looking
once before the book and once in the middle.
Right, and I assume that these were contractually in order for him to use this title. He had to use it. So they fought for this title.
Right.
I'm wondering what this title actually represents in the concept of the story.
I've tried to think about it, but I got nowhere. This one,
Yeah.
The illusion of the sort of American dream. You look at it, it's an empty shirt. It's nothing on the logo. And in the book, it's only mentioned when you're getting poisoned. Because alcohol
Yeah,
is
it's only
basically poison.
martinis.
yeah.
And martinis are the fat cat drink.
So that's where my head went with the Breakfast of
Yeah.
Champions. I'm like, okay, so it's the illusion and death of the American dream. Breakfast of
Okay.
Champions.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was in regard. So the scene that was noted to me was in the lobby bar. They were pretty specific about what drinks people were getting.
Yeah.
And they were not just a beer. It was like these like bartender drinks, right? And every time she brought a different martini, and it was specific as far as what gin they were getting. She would say Breakfast of Champions, and then someone called her on it, and she said, "I didn't mean any offense. I won't do it again."
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, I never even noticed I did it. No, yeah. So
I just wanted to make people happy. I was just trying to bring joy to people.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to earn a living with a smile.
Right.
So check this out, guys. Kilgore Trout has written 19 novels, 16 short stories, 1 memoir, and 1 play. So that feat alone, every one of those, as we learn about Kilgore Trout's stories, he describes them. I'm looking for someone, some sort of compilation of all the actual stories as.
Oh, they're online.
Yeah, you can find them.
Yeah, I want to find that. That's so great because there's every one of them is just like a little Zen koan or like a little like a perfectly framed tidbit of like brilliance.
I wonder if you could write a book based on one of his premises.
I'm sure, and imagine people have. That's a good point.
Well, so here's one where there's something about panda bears, and it was called Galongo. And
extinction.
Yeah. And it says, quote, people were glad that the bears were Galongo because there were too many species on the planet already, and new ones were coming into almost every hour. There was no way anybody could prepare for the bewildering diversity of creatures and plants he was likely to encounter. The people were doing their best to cut down on the number of species so that life could be more predictable, but nature was too creative for them. All life on the planet was suffocated at last by the living blanket 100 feet thick. The blanket was composed of passenger pigeons and eagles and Bermuda erns and whooping cranes.
There's the Bermuda ern again.
Yeah. So the fact that he throws these callbacks in is, to me, bordering genius.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think we can all agree that he's a literary genius.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. We'll have to get you back on sometime next year, maybe, for something else. We're really booked up right now. You guys have been a blast. Thank you. You guys at home, thanks for watching. Please give us a like, subscribe, and leave us some comments. Do you agree with what we had to say? Do you disagree? I want to hear back from you. And don't forget to be awesome.
And who's your favorite puppet? Put it in the comments.
Oh, good one.